All right, hello, and welcome to At Last to End, Season 2, Episode 1. I'm Charlie Hunter here with Will Hurdle, and man, it is good to be back in the studio.
Man, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and hopefully some of our listeners have as well. And we're
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
waste no time here on the return. We're going to jump straight into college football. And one major storyline from college football this week was poor quarterback play. In the Red River Showdown, it saw Spencer Rattler, a possible Heisman hopeful at the start of this year, benched in the second quarter after several turnovers. And then he came back at the end of the game in order to bring Oklahoma to a triple overtime victory against Texas. What did you think about that?
I know we'll talk about it later, but the defense in that game just was not good. And when you have poor quarterback play like we saw, it kind of masked some of the issues on the offensive side. I was not impressed with Spencer Rattler. Haven't been impressed with him all season. I know he was a five-star guy coming out of Phoenix, but he just has not looked the part of the Oklahoma quarterbacks that have come before him, like Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. So I think we need to see a little more. Tanner Mordecai wasn't much better in relief of him during that second quarter run. But man, if they're going to make another run, especially a run to the playoff, they're going to need him to be a lot better than he's been.
Yeah, I agree. I think Spencer Rattler, although he may have a skill set that's as good or even better than some of the quarterbacks that came before him, I think what he's shown so far is that he lacks a lot of leadership. Is Oklahoma has dropped two early games, both to Iowa State and Kansas State. Both games they should have won handily. So I think if you're Oklahoma, you have to have a gut check and kind of look at who you really want to be the leader of your team going forward, and if Spencer Rattler can handle that.
Yeah. He was on
in that
QB1, right?
what
Wasn't he on QB1?
he was on QB1.
Yeah, he was kind of an asshole on that show, right? If I
He
remember
was an
right.
asshole on that show.
Yeah,
He also got like suspended, and then they refused to tell anyone why he got suspended.
yeah. So maybe we just need him to grow up a little bit,
A
kind of
little bit
grow
of a
into that
personality
role.
check there,
Yeah,
maybe a
but
maturity thing. And then another storyline in that game, it looked like the game was just going to go on forever. They just kept matching each other. And I was so sick of Big 12 football by the end of the game that I was ready to just turn it off if it went to another overtime. But Sam Ellinger came to save me from the disgrace that is Big 12 defense and threw an interception in the back of the end zone to give Oklahoma a win.
yeah, it was a mediocre play. Wasn't a great throw, wasn't a great play by the receiver, but it was going to come down to who made a mistake less than, which defense made the bigger play. I know we were saying unless a team gets a stop, this is going to 6, 7 overtimes. I was saying 6. What we got 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
And if he puts that ball a foot to the left, that's a 4th overtime for us. So it was a costly mistake. Quarterbacks make those mistakes when you're 4 quarters and 4 overtimes deep, especially when you consider how well he had played for the rest of the game. You're bound to make that mistake. So obviously Texas fans aren't going to be happy with him after that. But it is what it is. You just got to bounce back from that. And I don't think you can understate how good he was leading up to that point in that game.
Yeah, and Texas now drops to 2 losses now to Oklahoma and TCU, and for a team that claims to be back about every year. It certainly seems like this may be the furthest from being back they've ever been.
Yeah, very disappointing for Texas fans. Maybe give it another 2 years. He'll
Yeah,
be back.
just bring up the hype again so you can lose another big time game.
Yeah, there we go.
Moving over to the SEC, another young quarterback who had a lot of hype going into the season was Bo Nix, and a very controversial play at the end of the game when Bo Nix went to spike the ball in order to try to stop the clock to kick a field goal. And when he tried to spike the ball, he fumbled the snap, picked it up, and then threw the ball backwards into the ground, which got called intentional grounding, but left a lot of fans thinking that this could have been a fumble. What were your thoughts on that play?
First of all, I consider myself a very active member of the Bo Nix hate club.
Yep.
I don't think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a good SEC quarterback. I think he's not as good as the guys that have come before him at Auburn. I think they got the call wrong at the end of the game. I think most people will agree with you on that. If you don't agree with that, then you probably need to go watch the film again and read the rule book. That's not how you officiate the game. That's not how you play the game. That's not how the rules work. They're lucky. They're lucky to come out of that game the way they did. But Bo Nix, I know there's a lot of hype coming for him going into the season. Even last year after that week 1 game against Oregon, there was so much hype about him. And he just has not lived up to it. Auburn's been okay. They've been decently successful, but I think you just need so much more out of him if you're going to reach kind of the point that Georgia, Alabama, all those other SEC teams are at right now.
Yeah, I think we see this a lot when a team that's normally good starts a young quarterback and then they just get destroyed by teams. Like, everyone is saying, oh, he played such a hard schedule last year. That means he's going to be good. He is a great example that it doesn't mean that it's going to be good. Yeah. It just means that he's going to continue to play the way he was. And I don't know if it's him or if it's the rest of the offense, but right now it looks a lot like it's his issue. And Auburn was just able to squeak past an Arkansas team that has looked better than normal, but still should not have been that much of a test for the Auburn squad.
Yeah. Trial by fire does not always end up well.
Yeah. Continuing on in the SEC, KJ Costello, just a couple weeks after having the SEC all-time passing record, gets benched against a Kentucky team where we saw Mississippi State score 0 offensive points throughout the entire game. What did you think about that?
I mean, I think it's time to put the nail in the coffin of the Mike Leach air raid experiment in the SEC. Obviously, it's so exciting to watch against LSU. I was so excited to see the outcome of that game.
Yeah.
But we're 2 weeks after that, and all we've seen is LSU can't stop anybody. Mississippi State hasn't been able to beat anybody other than LSU. Their offense didn't put up any points against a Kentucky defense that is not good.
Yeah.
So this was not impressive by Mississippi State, by Costello, by Mike Leach. The air raid just, if you're going to make it work in the SEC, it's not going to work like this. I don't know where you go from here if you're Mississippi State. I don't know if there's a better scheme fit at quarterback. I don't know who else you can get on that team that's going to make this scheme work. I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's following up another poor performance from last week where they lost to that same Arkansas team that was their first SEC in God knows how long. So Mississippi State's definitely in a tough spot right now. Mike Leach, well, I guess we'll see how good of a coach he is or if he's just some crazy guy who likes to say random things.
Yeah, he's fun, though. He's fun to watch. I'll give him that.
Yeah, fun to watch. Glad the SEC has him.
Yeah, fun guy. We'll have him on someday.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. Mike Leach, if you're watching, just hit our DMs. We'll get you on the show sometime.
Wait, when you get fired a couple of years, come here. We got you.
Hit us up. We can have a third co-host. Switching conferences, moving on to the ACC, we saw a primetime matchup between Clemson and an ACC top-tier hopeful of Miami, in which Clemson blew out Miami. Clemson put up, I believe, 42 points against Miami, and many people were questioning whether Miami was going to be a legitimate contender in the ACC and whether they're going to challenge Clemson at all. And it certainly didn't look like it in this game. Travis Etienne ran wild with 2 touchdowns, and Trevor Lawrence showed no signs of slowing down what should be a Heisman Trophy win for him. What do you think about this game?
I mean, we just got off an entire segment about poor quarterback play. I think, we forget that college quarterbacks shouldn't be as good as Trevor Lawrence has been playing right now. He's playing out of his mind since week 1. And, it feels like people aren't talking about him that much because he's been expected to be this good for the past 2 years. He's been expected to win the Heisman. This is what we expected coming into the season. On that game in particular, it was disappointing to see them blow out Miami like that, just because you and I know so many fans across the country were hoping that they would have some competition in that conference this year, some legitimate competition, and it wouldn't be that easy road to the playoff that they've had the past few years. But, maybe Miami didn't play great, but I don't think we should take anything away from what Trevor Lawrence has been doing, from Travis Etienne's greatness, and from just overall how good this Clemson team is.
Yeah, I mean, after watching Bo Nix and KJ Costello play all day, watching Trevor Lawrence was like watching Peyton Manning throw against a Pee Wee football team. It was just a breath of fresh air. And I was really pulling for the Miami and their turnover chain. I think they're a fun team. They got a lot of hype, but they just weren't able to back it up. And so moving on to another team that could possibly be a threat to Clemson in the ACC, North Carolina. They played Virginia Tech, a game in which was high scoring, like many of the other games we saw this weekend, with North Carolina coming out on top 56-45. What did you think about this game?
I thought it was a really weird game. UNC jumped out to a really big lead early. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and 11 points, that's not a small margin, but 56-45, that's a super high scoring game. You got, a team with first round talent probably on both sides of the ball, like UNC has. Sam Howell at quarterback, Chester at linebacker. You're hoping that maybe you're a more well-rounded team than giving up 30 points, whatever they did in the second half, get Virginia Tech back in the game like that. But I think they're the last man standing in the ACC other than Clemson. That's the last test Clemson's going to face. They've showed that Miami isn't a threat to them. So UNC, I think they just have to clean up on defense. They have so much potential to be such a great team. That offense is going to be amazing with Howell at quarterback. So I'm hoping that they can clean it up, contend with Clemson, but just that second half on the defensive side of the ball, at least, is worrisome if I'm a UNC fan.
Yeah, I think that game will be fun to watch. It's looking right now like it's going to be a shootout. If UNC has a similar defensive performance to what they had against Virginia Tech, Trevor Lawrence may throw for 3,000 yards and they might put up 200 points on them. But I do believe that UNC, that offense has a chance to challenge Clemson and at least maybe give them a better game than Miami. So I guess going off of that, do you think that Clemson will enter the college football playoffs undefeated?
Oh yeah, definitely. We mentioned what other tests they have outside of UNC. Just conference only schedule, or you maybe have Notre Dame. That's about it. I think if we're going to rank teams right now, I'm going Clemson and Georgia are in a tier of their own. Everyone else is a tier below them. So yes, I fully expect them to go into the playoff undefeated. I expect them to win it all.
Yeah, I think the ACC looks like they're trending in the right direction. They've got a few teams up in the top 25 that are solid teams, but Clemson is in a league of their own, not only nationally, but in the conference. And I don't think that anyone in the ACC will get closer than Miami did on Saturday night. Moving off of the poor defensive performance from North Carolina, we saw poor defensive performances all throughout the country. It's been a major storyline throughout college football so far. LSU, defending national champions, lose a game at Missouri that was moved because of Hurricane Delta, and they were stopped at the goal line on a possible go-ahead touchdown. What do you think about that game? What do you think LSU's defense can recover from what a performance that Ed Orgeron said was embarrassing?
I mean, I don't think you can just call that performance embarrassing. They've been embarrassing all season. They're 1-2 right now, and that one win came against Vanderbilt. That's nothing to brag about. It's nothing to write home about. They're unranked right now. It's the first time a defending champ has been unranked in a decade almost. So no, I don't think. I'm not impressed with them. I don't think they can turn it around. I think that defense is a lost cause right now. I will be the first to tell you I haven't played football at the level that they have. I don't know if the off season or the lack of fans in the stands has anything to do with the fact that they can't play defense right now. But I just don't see how you fix it. I don't know where you go from here if you're Coach O.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to make a storyline. Oh, Miles Brennan is no Joe Burrow. I mean, LSU probably will never have another Joe Burrow. But Miles Brennan is a very good college football quarterback who's putting up a lot of points in games, and their defense is just doing him no favors.
Yeah, and what you have to understand is that they didn't just lose Joe Burrow. They lost Edwards-Helaire. They lost Justin Jefferson. They lost Jamar Chase, who opted out. They lost a ton of guys on that offensive line. Thaddeus Moss at tight end, another tight end they lost to. So, Miles Brennan, really good quarterback. He's playing well. They're putting up 40 a game. You're playing the SEC. Putting up 40 should win you the game. But, they're just not getting there. And I don't think it's Miles Brennan's fault. I think it's a team-wide issue. And I just don't see when the issues run that deep how you fix it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting a year after everyone fell in love with Ed Orgeron to see this now, whether it's a coaching issue or a personnel issue. We'll really get to see how good of a coach he actually is.
Yeah.
Moving on, further into the SEC, Alabama played Ole Miss in a game where Alabama gave up the most yards ever by an Alabama team. They gave up 647 yards to a Lane Kiffin-led Ole Miss team. Ultimately, they were able to come out on top thanks to Najee Harris with a last to win player of the week, 5 touchdowns for him. One of the best performances we've ever seen. Do you think that this Alabama team, do you think this was a fluke, or do you think that this Alabama team is not going to be able to contend?
I think it was a fluke. We saw them against A&M last week, shut them down. What was it, 52-24, something like that.
Yeah.
They have so much talent on that defense, all 3 levels. That's a really good defense. And, Ole Miss isn't good. We won't call them good. We won't, overreact to this game and say that they are a contender because of that. But I think this is an outlier. Saban's the best coach probably we've ever seen in college football. He's going to get this defense back on track. They obviously have so much talent on offense with Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Najee Harris. Obviously, we talked about him. I think, like I said earlier, I have Clemson and Georgia kind of in a tier of their own, but Alabama leads that next tier after them, I think. And I think they can get up into the top tier if they can kind of pull it together after this game.
Next week, obviously, will be a very big test for Alabama as they face up against Georgia, and we'll really get to see those tiers settle in the SEC. Continuing on in the SEC, Florida, a team that many people are calling a contender, possible at that top of the league with Georgia and Alabama, took a loss to Texas A&M as Kellen Mond threw all over that Florida defense. Do you think Florida can contend nationally or even in the SEC based on what you saw against Texas A&M?
I don't know. I really don't think I have an answer for this one. Maybe Kellen Mond's the greatest quarterback of all time. Maybe he's Joe Burrow this year.
He might be.
Kellen Mond. You never know.
I've
liked Kellen Mond. I've always liked watching Kellen Mond. But, it's such an odd turnaround from what we've seen from Florida earlier this year to what we saw from them on Saturday against A&M. I want to say that this is an outlier performance, like I said about Bama, especially when you have so much talent on offense with Trask, Pitts, Tony. That offense can put up a lot of points like they did against A&M. So hopefully, Florida can pull it together like Bama. I don't really want to watch a college football season where every game is 50-40. But we'll have to see where we go from here. Maybe Kellen Mond, maybe this was a turning point for him. Maybe Jimbo Fisher's pulling it together into A&M, but I don't know what to think about Florida right now.
Yeah, I think Florida has some weapons on offense, but that defense wasn't great last year. It's still not great this year. They gave up a lot of points to Texas A&M team that Alabama was able to handle fairly readily. And I know Dan Mullen wants to say it's because of the crowd noise and all the military people Texas A&M brought into the game. But ultimately, if your defense sucks, it doesn't matter how many people are at the game. You're going to lose the game.
Yeah, you shouldn't need crowd noise to be to play good defense.
More on that later. Moving on, switching conferences, we go to the Big 12. The Big 12, not necessarily known for their defensive prowess. I think this style of football that we've seen in the SEC is kind of what the Big 12 is every year. But we see the 2 top contenders normally drop 2 games already, Oklahoma and Texas. You have to assume that would put them out of any competition nationally to get into the playoffs, probably puts them out of the top 25 too. That conference looks wide open. I think most people assume that Oklahoma State is probably the best team in the conference. Do you concur with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe you get someone like Iowa State, Brock Purdy, really good quarterback. Maybe you get a Baylor that comes up. But, I think we should just agree. This is the last time we talk about the Big 12 on here. They're irrelevant. They're not doing anything this year. They're not fun to watch.
This show's supposed to be about the college football playoff, and the Big 12 is about as far away from that as they could possibly be. So if you're a Big 12 fan, I would unsubscribe, never watch our show again. And
you're not welcome here.
Don't talk to me in person, please. So
all right.
Moving on, we talked a lot about bad defensive performances, but a conference known for that grind and pound type of style of football is the Big Ten. You see a lot of games, scores like 13-3, really low scoring games. The Big Ten slated to come back in about 2 weeks. They just released their schedule, released times, a lot of hype surrounding the Big Ten coming back. Do you think that the Big Ten will be more of the same, where it's going to be a shootout every game? Or do you think that Big Ten defenses are actually going to have a backbone this year, unlike what we've seen so far?
I mean, I think it depends. I know I talked about it earlier, but we just don't know what the cause of this is, especially in the SEC, because it's so unusual to see these high scoring shootouts. If it's a product of the off season, of the lack of crowd noise. This the Big Ten probably had the most tumultuous off season of any Power 5 conference, just for switching and flip flopping back and forth between we're playing, we're not playing, we're playing, we're not playing. So I want to say it's not going to be the same. You have amazing coaches in the Big Ten. You have so much talent there. Just so many first round picks, potential first rounders. So I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Big Ten's probably the most exciting, most professional resembling football that we'll get in college football this year. I think once they start playing, I'll probably have to put Ohio State up in that top tier with Clemson and Georgia. So yeah, I'm hoping we get good football out of them this year, and we'll have to see in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether because that saw players opting out, opting back in. The Big Ten was flip-flopping whether they were going to play. Trump's taking the credit for the entire league coming back. So it's been an interesting storyline for that league. My Boilermakers had a scrimmage about 5 minutes away from me a couple days ago. So look for them. We'll move them into the top tier as well pretty soon.
Yep.
They start showing Rondale Moore, best player in the country.
Heisman time.
Yep. Heisman season for Rondale Moore. And now we're going to move out of college football. A lot of big performances in college football last week. A lot of good games next week coming up as well. Obviously with Alabama and Georgia playing. And we're going to move into the NFL. The NFL is a league that this year, the storyline hasn't been bad defense, but it's been more everybody gets injured. Coronavirus is running rampant. And so one positive, one of the people we saw return from injuries was Alex Smith. He came back as the Washington Redskins lost to the LA Rams. From everyone here at Last Two In, we want to congratulate Alex Smith and his family.
Congratulations, Smith family.
Yep, on a safe return. It appears that Aaron Donald does not offer the same message, as he was destroying him and trying to send him back into injury as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Donald, that's a tough game to come back to. You haven't played in 2 years. You almost lost your leg, almost lost your life. It's something you got to play against one of the best defensive linemen of all time. But it's good to see Alex back out there. Everyone's been a fan of him, especially all the quarterback issues that Washington's going through right now. Super valuable for Ron Rivera to have him on the team right now. Super great to see him playing. I hope he's still successful. He looked okay in whatever action he had on Sunday, so we'll hope that continues.
Yeah, that Washington team, the offensive line didn't do him any favors, so it's kind of hard to see him display his skill set, but he was making some smart decisions, even though he did have to tuck it and get sandwiched by Aaron Donald several times.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, it happens. Continuing on in the NFL, one of the biggest storylines so far this week was a 49ers team that was in the Super Bowl last year and has been plagued by injuries. Saw them get blown out by my man Fitzmagic and the Miami Dolphins. And Garoppolo ended up getting benched, a quarterback who had led his team to a Super Bowl. Many were talking about whether he's a franchise quarterback. People were going as far as to saying he was a better version of Tom Brady. Has not looked like that at all this season. And that was a team that really struggled against the Dolphins team that has been okay so far. Definitely not a good performance for the Niners. Yeah,
I mean, it's disappointing, Garoppolo coming back from injuries. Niners are trying to get healthy. They're getting really healthy on offense. Lots of their major injuries are still on defense, but you have a Miami team that, really bad last year, better than their roster probably should have been, but really bad. Still not great this year. And you get 30 plus points put on you. I know that's not Jimmy Garoppolo's fault, but you should be able to keep up, especially given Miami's defense, the weapons that San Fran has on offense. I think it's been really weird. We haven't heard much out of Kyle Shanahan in the past few days about this entire situation. So maybe it's a Spencer Rattler situation where, you take him out for the rest of the game. Maybe he's still hurt. He's not fully healthy or something. And then once he's ready to go, you put him back in. Weird thing is we don't see that often in the NFL. So I don't know. It's a really weird situation, but proud of my boy CJ Beathard.
Oh yeah, getting
happy
that
to see him
start.
getting snaps.
Yeah, glad for him. I think it was kind of interesting that the 49ers last year pretty much were able to get to the Super Bowl off of their run game and their offensive line and defensive performance, and they shifted a little bit away from the run game. I expected the way their quarterbacks have been playing, just run the ball every snap, but they were giving CJ Beathard some chances to throw, which I thought was a little bit surprising given the plethora of talent in the backfield with Jerick McKinnon and Raheem Mostert back there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're down 21, you probably don't have too many options. But I think it's worrisome. My heart kind of leans towards this was like a freak out move by Shanahan. You have a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, almost won it. If it weren't for that loss play, Mahomes to Tyreek. But you're 2-3 now. You're in the toughest division in football. I think it was a freak out move. It was an overreaction. I would have let Jimmy keep playing. I would have trusted him in that situation more than I trust CJ Beathard, especially considering Beathard didn't do much for you when Jimmy was hurt. So yeah, I think it's an overreaction. We'll have to see where San Fran goes from here.
Yeah, I think even when Garoppolo's missing those big throws, he's still a good game manager that you have to keep in, especially when you're down by that much, that you can at least have a chance. You have to play smart when you're down by that much. So I definitely think I agree with you, as a freak out move by Shanahan. He knows they're going to struggle to qualify for the playoffs this year, even with the additional team, because that division is so strong. So the 49ers, their injuries on defense have kept them out of a lot of games, and their offense hasn't been able to pick up the slack.
Maybe this is the start of the next Fitzmagic cycle. He gets signed by San Fran. They bench Jimmy for Fitzmagic. He plays well, gets benched again, signs with a new team. We'll have to see how long this goes on for. Maybe it goes on for 25 years. Who knows?
Hey, I'm all in on Fitzmagic.
Yeah, I'm getting that Niners jersey. That Fitzmagic Niners jersey. It's going to be framed right behind me.
Also, this is kind of old news, but we've seen the Chargers, Justin Herbert, last night on Monday Night Football. Herbert had a great game. But Tyrod Taylor, this never would have happened if he didn't get his lung punctured by a team doctor. And I think Tyrod Taylor has the worst luck of anyone ever in the NFL.
Yeah, because he's never played bad.
He's always like fine.
Yeah, he's on bad teams. I feel so bad for that man.
And then he gets really unlucky and loses his job based on some like weird injury circumstance.
Yeah, and there was that one year I remember where everyone thought Jacksonville was going to trade for him. They stick with Blake Bortles, and then a year later end up signing Nick Foles. So I feel bad for him. Happy for Alex Smith. Feel bad for Tyrod Taylor. It's a life circle of life right there. Yeah,
I mean, maybe one of those teams that their quarterbacks are playing horrible trades for him. I'd like to see my boy get another chance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're a team that's bad right now. If you have bad quarterback play, do you try to turn it around, or do you tank for Trevor? Do you wait for Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance in the draft next year?
See, if it's me, I think it depends a lot on your position that you're in your division. So, like, if I'm the 49ers, I'm not saying it's a little too early to start tanking probably, but if you drop a couple more games moving forward, I would not be ashamed to tank based on who's in your division. You're probably not going to get a playoff spot. But if you're the Dallas Cowboys and your division is absolutely horrible and you can get in going like 7-9 maybe, then I would just try to tough it out. You never know what happens in the playoffs.
Yep.
Speaking about the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott suffers a gruesome injury against the New York Giants. Our thoughts and prayers from everyone here at Last Two In go out to Dak Prescott and his family. He had ankle surgery that night after the game. Really tough situation for the Cowboys. Andy Dalton was able to step in, and the Cowboys still came out on top with a win against the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, applause to Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones for signing Andy Dalton, for being ready for this situation, but also be mad at them because they didn't give Dak his money.
Yeah.
He should have his money by right now. He should not be worried about coming back. He should not be worried about his future right now. He should have that contract in his hand, that money in his bank account. So, they made the right football move when it, in terms of their roster. But Dak's probably one of the nicest guys in the league. Past 7 years of his life, he's been through so much. You saw him open up this offseason about his mental health issues, and Skip Bayless just ripped him for it. That's the kind of shit he has to deal with. And I feel so bad for him, but 4 to 6 months recovery, that's what we're hearing right now. Hopefully he comes back at full strength. Everything that we've heard points towards that. So I'm excited to see him next year, especially once again in this offense. Has so much talent, but I feel so bad for him. It's the sad part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Dak's been through a bunch. He should have gotten paid this offseason. Now he's got to worry about losing his job to Andy Dalton, maybe. But I think that this Cowboys team, I mean, they weren't good with Dak Prescott, but with Andy Dalton, I don't think they'll miss a step. I think they'll probably give more snaps to Ezekiel Elliott. But like you said, that offense is so talented that I don't think they'll really miss out that much, even though Dak's such a good quarterback. It's really just going to come down to can their defense improve, because their defense has been god awful through the start of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cowboys are 2-3 now after that win against the Giants, but they beat 0-5 if they didn't have Dak keeping them in the game. He's been playing really well this season. So I worry, like you said, if the defense can't step it up, if they can't fix their issues, I don't think the game flow will favor Andy Dalton throwing it 55 times a game.
Yeah.
I don't think you can win like that. I don't think he can even keep you in the game like that. So obviously this is going to require, Dallas to fix all of their other issues now that they have this minor issue at quarterback. So tough situation all around, but it is what it is. It's the game.
I mean, Dallas has been coming back from games pretty much all year just because their defense has let them down, and Dak's been leading them on that. They had their first one was a crazy comeback against the Falcons, who fired Dan Quinn, which is probably a long time coming. And then, even against the Giants, they were down 17-3 after the first quarter, and they came back and won that game. So they're going to have to change their entire style of play, and their defense has to improve in some way, because right now, like you said, even though Andy Dalton's a very capable quarterback, he's not going to throw for 500 yards when they need him to.
Yeah. So we go from probably the most one-sided team in the league, probably the most complete team in the league, no longer undefeated, lost to the Raiders. The Chiefs did. What do you think of that game? It's a weird game.
I mean, I've been a big Derek Carr fan for a while. I think he's playing really good football right now. I think the Chiefs' defense has been pretty good, at least good enough to keep them in games and allow Patrick Mahomes to work his magic. They struggled a little bit against Derek Carr. That Raiders offense is a lot better than people think, with Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs, and Hunter Renfrow. So the Raiders offense, the Raiders have a chance to be pretty good. I wonder if this is going to cause the Chiefs offense to reflect on themselves at all, because while they're known for all the big plays, do they have to look at themselves and think, like, do we need more fundamental football plays, like quick slants, good runs down the field? So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs recover, most of all for me.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I think it's going to be hard. This is a team that it's probably favored every game.
Yeah.
And you're 4-1 right now, which is great record, obviously, but you weren't expected to lose that game. Hats off to John Gruden. He's done an amazing job building this team in the way he wants it. Look back just a few years ago, Khalil Mack trade. We all thought that was a horrible trade.
Yeah.
We thought John Gruden had no place in the NFL now. But look at him now. He's turned it around. This is a good football team. Derek Carr, like you said, looks closer to his MVP form from 2016 than he has in the past few years.
Yeah.
I think the problem has been the past few years is that Derek Carr is the new Andy Dalton, where if your quarterback's better than Derek Carr, you like him. If he's worse, you get rid of him. So I think we're just kind of hoping that Derek Carr turns the corner, moves that scale where he's solidifies himself as a franchise quarterback, takes away all of the questions around him, doesn't have John Gruden spreading rumors about drafting a quarterback every year. So I definitely think this is more about the Raiders than the Chiefs right now. I think this is about the potential of the Raiders, how good they really are, and not any issues that the Chiefs have that just came, unraveled last night.
Yeah. Do you think that the Raiders do you think that they can get a wild card spot or even challenge the Chiefs for the divisional spot? And do you think they can compete in the playoffs if they're able to make it?
I don't think anyone's challenging the Chiefs for that division. Wild card spot, we're going to have to see. We have that one extra playoff team this year, which is going to really help a team like the Raiders that's probably going to play towards, the bubble for the playoff this year, right on the outside of that, trying to get in. So I think they can make it in. It's going to probably take maybe some help from another team. I don't know, because if we were going into this year, I'd say those wild card teams we were looking at, we're probably looking at one or two teams from the AFC South. They had what was expected to be three good teams with Houston, Tennessee, and Indy. Obviously, Houston's not doing anything this year; they're out of the picture.
Yeah.
But they have a chance to contend. I think you're 2-3 years into this rebuild. If you're John Gruden and Mike Mayock, and you have a team that's ready to contend for the playoffs, that just had a convincing performance against the defending champs, that look even better than they did last year. I think they're on pace. They're on the pace they want to be at. So I think, they're a contender.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think definitely, I don't think they're going to challenge the Chiefs either. But if they can work their way into a wild card spot, however that may be, I think they have a chance to be dangerous for some of those weaker divisions down the line in the playoffs. Continuing on, the Browns get a big win against the Colts on Sunday. Do you think that the Browns are for real after they have won 4 straight games now?
Yeah, 4-1 on the season. Baker Mayfield playing way more efficiently than he did last year. I think they're for real. We've been waiting for all of that talent on both sides of the ball to come together. On offense, it looks like it has. It was tough for them to lose Nick Chubb a couple weeks ago, but Kareem Hunt has filled that role. Hillard in the backfield has filled that. They have an amazing tight end room with David Njoku, Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, obviously Odell and Jarvis out wide. So the offense has so much talent. The issue with them last year was the offensive line. It just couldn't hold up. This year, it's really good. It's really good pass blocking. It's really good run blocking. And we saw last week against a Colts team that has probably the best offensive line in the league. Granted, they were without Costanzo, but Myles Garrett was wrecking them the entire game.
Yeah.
That defense can get pressure. The linebackers are making plays. It's a really good all-around football team. I think Kevin Stefanski has been playing really well. I think they can make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the most difficult thing for them is their division is kind of stacked right now, with the Steelers being undefeated. The Ravens are still good with Lamar Jackson, and then you've got the Browns. I agree with all the things that you said, and I think that one of the things that is the most obvious to me is they just look like they're having more fun. Like they went in last year with everyone saying they had a chance to be really good, and then just let down everyone. I don't know if there was locker room issues, conflict, whatever. Like you said, the offensive line wasn't great, But this year, it seems that Baker Mayfield has taken a little bit of pressure off of himself. He's just throwing the ball around. He's making good throws, good plays. And then Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry have been making catches and playing well. I think Jarvis Landry came out and said this is the happiest he's seen Odell Beckham since he was in college. So I'm really happy for the Browns, and I think they can grab one of those wild card spots and be a team like the Raiders who have a chance to knock off some of those division opponents.
Yeah, I mean, sticking with the AFC North, you mentioned the Steelers. What do you think about them? Big Ben's been playing well. Do you think they have a chance to make a run like the Browns do?
Yeah, I think the Steelers right now are definitely a team that may win that AFC North. Like you said, Big Ben's playing well. It's kind of a comeback season for him. They've got a really young wide receiver core right now, led by Juju, but then they also saw Chase Claypool, who put up 4 touchdowns out of Notre Dame, the rookie. And then you've got Deontay Johnson as well and Washington. So that's a really good receiving lineup. In the backfield, you've got James Conner, who's had some issues with health and with injuries. He seems to be like he's back. They've got a really loaded backfield between him, Benny Snell, and Anthony McFarland. So they've got a lot of guys there that they can rotate in and out to keep players healthy. That offense, it looks like they're going to be able to put up a lot of points. The defense looks pretty solid right now, but really the defense has to keep them in the game so the offense can put up points. But I would say the Steelers have a chance to have a very good record, get that division spot in the AFC North.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They're playing really well. They look really good. I know their schedule hasn't been too difficult so far, but Big Ben, we know what he can do. He's been doing it for years. I think he's back at full health for the first time in a while. And like you said, there's just something with those wide receivers. Pittsburgh wide receivers, it's crazy. To come back from, the killer bees, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Big Ben. And now you have, in my opinion, an all-around offense that's even better between the offensive line, Juju, Deontay, Claypool, throwing Eric Ebron too. He's been playing well. It's probably the first legitimate tight end weapon Big Ben has had in a while.
Yeah.
They have so much firepower, so many weapons. Like you said, the defense has been playing really well. Cameron Hayward, still great. So yeah, I think they can contend. That AFC North is really going to be exciting.
Yeah, another team that has started off well is the Bears. I believe they're 4-1 right now with one loss coming against the Colts. They beat Tom Brady and the Bucs last Thursday night. Everyone saw the meme with Tom Brady putting up the 4. He was a little confused, getting kind of old, doesn't know what down it is anymore, I guess. Do you think the Bears are a team that can contend, even with their dual quarterbacks? They're switching in and out.
I mean, first of all, do we think Tom Brady forgot the down?
I think he forgot the down.
Yeah, I think he forgot.
I don't really have faith.
A little old.
I mean, I don't like Tom Brady very much, so I may be against him a little bit. But like based on what him and Bruce Arians said after, like Bruce Arians seemed like he was completely trying to cover him.
Oh yeah.
And Tom Brady just never even gave like a full-on response.
Yeah.
Like he just never admitted that he knew what it was.
Yeah, and you don't react like that on the field if you know what down it is. That was a J.R. Smith moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the Bears. I don't think they're for real. Schedule's been super easy. They're one good team they've played, which was the Colts. Tough loss there. They should have lost on Thursday night against Brady if he didn't forget the down. So I don't think, I know there's lots of hype around Nick Foles. I know there's a lot coming into the season with that coaching staff that's worked with him before, that he had success with before. They have talent. Khalil Mack, Allen Robinson, David Montgomery. There's lots of talent there. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think you have the all-around skill level to bring it in. And that's going to be a really tough conference to get into the playoffs with. Because you have to, first of all, in your division, have to beat Green Bay.
Yep.
You have Minnesota, which even though they're 1-4, I think is a better team than Chicago. Mm-hmm. And then look at those wild card spots. You have everyone in the AFC or the NFC West that you have to contend with, which is Arizona, Rams, Seattle, San Fran. I think they could be a good team. They could be a fine team. Nick Foles has been playing okay. But in that conference, I don't think they make a run. I don't see it happening. They're not better than the teams, they're playing against.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears really should be 2-3 right now, right? Because they came
Yeah.
back against the Falcons, they lost to the Colts, and then Tom Brady, if he wasn't old, should have beaten them with the Bucks. So even with an easy schedule, they should be 2-3 right now. And the Colts, it pains me to say this because, big Colts fans over here, but the Colts are a mediocre team. They're middle of the row. They're fine. And I think they beat the Bears, 19-13.
Yeah. Was not great. Was not convincing.
If you watched the game, like the Colts should have won by a lot more.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because I think the Bears had 3 points until like 6 minutes to go in the fourth or something.
Yeah, it was not. The game wasn't as close as the final score made it seem.
Yeah, the Colts really dismantled them. They rendered the Bears' offense pretty much useless, and so I'm going to agree with you. The Bears are not for real. I don't even know if they're going to finish above 500 this year. I don't know if they have it. Nick Foles can make good plays. I don't think he's consistent enough. I think the recent games, especially the Colts, show that it wasn't just Mitchell Trubisky's fault, even though they both missed some throws. So, yeah, I don't think they're for real at all. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. But hey, maybe the Bears are listening to this right now too, and they turn this around. I'm a big Allen Robinson fan. He's been carrying me in fantasy, so I'm rooting for you guys. I just don't think that you're good at football.
Yeah, it's fun when Chicago is good, but can't just say they're good because we can. They gotta show it. They gotta be more convincing about it.
Yeah, they got to get some wins. Moving on, sticking in the NFL, but going on into our fantasy segment, we're going to take a look at everything that you need to know for this week in fantasy for your lineups. So starting off, we've got some sleepers that you may be able to pick up off the waiver wire. Who do you got?
I'm going to start with the tight end. Tight end depth in fantasy, not great. Chances are a lot of you are looking for a tight end. I'm going to start with TJ Hawkinson. He's available in about 30% of leagues right now. So especially if you're in a 10-person league, definitely if you're in an 8-person league, you should be able to get him. He plays Jacksonville this week. Not a great defense, especially against tight ends. This is the week that I think TJ Hawkinson finally has that game like we saw week 1 last year where he kind of breaks out, shows why he was a top 10 pick. So TJ Hawkinson, my top sleeper this week. Moving on, I'm going to say if you need a running back this week, Myles Gaskin of the Dolphins put up about 20 last week against a decent 49ers defense. Obviously, they've had some injuries, but he's against the Jets this week. Everyone tears up the Jets. Game flow should favor him. He should get lots of touches. Myles Gaskin, I'm definitely looking at either as a waiver wire pickup, if he's available, maybe a trade target because he has value down the stretch. He's a guy I like. Sticking in the running back room, Davonte Freeman got 19 touches last week against Dallas, put up about 14, 15 points, had a touchdown. Decent performance for him. Obviously, he's replacing Saquon. The offense isn't great. New York's not a great team. Again, Dallas isn't a great defense. That's why he was able to succeed against them. Good news for him. He plays against another bad defense this year, Washington, or this week rather. In Washington, he has a chance to replicate that performance from last week, get lots of touches, and hopefully be a good contributor to your fantasy team this week.
Yeah, so lots of holes there to fill at running back with, probably the top 2 picks in your league going out. So we've got you covered. Who you should pick up off the waiver wire. And some of the injuries that took place this week, we saw a lot of top tier players go down. A lot of you starting Dak. I think that your first choice if you're trying to replace Dak should be Justin Herbert. He's playing really well right now, and he's likely available in a lot of your leagues. But you got other talented guys like Jared Goff with the Rams. He's available in about 50% of leagues. So if you're in a smaller league with a lot of spots available, you can grab Goff. Andy Dalton, like we were talking about, very capable quarterback that he might not get. You can't expect the same thing fantasy-wise that Dak was getting, but he'll be able to make some throws and put up some solid points for you. What other quarterbacks do you have that you could replace Dak with?
I like Teddy Bridgewater. He's QB 14 right now, but past 2 weeks he's put up over 20 points. He's got Joe Brady, that new offensive coordinator. It's really coming together in Carolina. He looks really good. He's available in 60% of leagues, so you should be able to get him. Teddy Bridgewater's a guy I really like. Moving on to running backs, past that, Dalvin Cook is going to be out this week against Atlanta, which is tough because he's going to put up a lot of points against that Atlanta defense. But if he's available, get his backup, get Alexander Madison. He was super efficient in the second half against Seattle last week, filling in for Cook. He's a guy I would look at as a flex option, maybe an RB2 in your league this week.
Moving down, looking at some matchups, we've got some players that you should start this week. You know, sometimes they're on the edge of who you should start. We can help you solidify your starting lineup. Like we said, the Dolphins are playing the Jets this week. You got Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker, and really any other Miami skill player. I would say those are the top two guys right now to move into your starting lineup based on their matchup. Who else do you have that you think players should move into their starting lineup?
I mean, you asked about quarterback replacements earlier. Obviously, we talked about the Dolphins just now playing against the Jets. Fitzmagic had a great game against 49ers last week. He's a guy who can contribute to your fantasy team this week. Moving on, James Robinson. If you have him, he should not be available in your league. If he is available, pick him up. He shouldn't be available. So if you have him, play him this week against Detroit, 29th versus running backs on the season. He's getting a lot of touches in that Jacksonville offense. I doubt this is a game where Detroit gets out to a big lead or a big lead. So James Robinson, game flow should favor him, should continue to get a lot of touches, maybe get into the end zone. That's the defense that isn't great at stopping the run. So he's a guy I'm looking at. Sticking with running backs, Tampa Bay, Ronald Jones II. He's kind of spearheading the run game for this offense in Tampa Bay right now that has a lot of talent. But against Green Bay, 30th versus running backs, which is really weird because that's a pretty good defense, but they're giving up a lot of points to running backs. Bruce Arians is great at exploiting those weaknesses in the defenses. I think he's going to give a lot of touches to Ronald Jones. He's a guy that I lock into your lineup probably as an RB2 or a flex this week.
Yeah, going on kind of the opposite of that, guys, you may have in your starting lineup that we think you should bench this week. I'm going to stick with the receiver position, and I'm going to do this based on two teams that have had good receiving production lately, but I don't think that's going to continue on into this week. Number one, the Cowboys. Like we said, Andy Dalton's a capable quarterback, but I think that the Cowboys, they're not going to throw the ball 50 times, however many times Dak was throwing to get a huge comeback. I think Zeke, I mean, you should be starting him every week. Make sure you start him again this week. I look for him to get some more production. But the Cowboys have a variety of receivers, which makes it kind of scary to start one of them any week, but especially now that they're going to have to move towards a run-first offense. I would look to avoid the Cowboys receivers. Also continuing on, I would be wary of starting the Pittsburgh wide receivers. I know a lot of people may try to jump if you have Chase Claypool or if you're going to pick him up off of waivers. He's a good receiver, but that receiving core is so deep and so young that who gets that many touchdowns per week? You know, next week it could be Juju gets 4 touchdowns, or maybe it's spread out. Each receiver gets 1 touchdown. But I think it's too unpredictable to be able to start one wide receiver. So if you can, I would try to avoid starting any of those 4 Pittsburgh receivers.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. It's just I don't think there's many offenses that can sustain 3 starting caliber fantasy receivers throughout an entire season. Last week, Amari Cooper only had 2 points. Most of those points came when Andy Dalton was in at quarterback. The week before, he and CeeDee Lamb both went for over 20. So it's really inconsistent when you have an offense that has so many mouths to feed. So again, be wary, Cowboys, Pittsburgh. Even I'm going to go over to Carolina. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson were really good this week, but I'm a little wary of them coming up. Teddy Bridgewater, I mentioned him earlier as a guy who's playing really well. But again, so many mouths to feed on that offense with Mike Davis. Eventually you'll have Christian McCaffrey returning. But DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, I'm looking at them less as a wide receiver 2 and more as a flex option this week. Mm-hmm. Getting out of the wide receivers, Joe Mixon, I know he's probably your RB1 for most of you guys with him, but I'd be a little wary of him. He's against the Colts this week, who are 4th against running backs. hopefully Darius Leonard comes back, which is going to make that defense a lot stronger than it was against Cleveland. That offensive line isn't great. You're going against one of the best defensive lines in the league, led by DeForest Buckner. And we saw Joe Mixon against Baltimore last week, another really strong defense, only put up 15 points. So that's not the production you want out of your RB1. I know it's probably really hard to replace him because, like I said, he's probably one of your best players on your team. But when I'm setting the rest of your lineup, I would probably look for guys with a higher ceiling rather than a higher floor, because I'm afraid you're going to have to make up for points that Joe Mixon isn't going to get you this week. And then also, I just don't know what to think about Tom Brady right now. He hasn't been I think he's more rosterable this year than he has been in years past with New England. But he's a matchup play. I think he's a matchup play. If you think otherwise, you're probably losing your fantasy league right now. But yeah, so I would fade Tom Brady this week. Maybe look into rostering 2 quarterbacks, one of the guys we mentioned earlier. But yeah, Tom Brady, not a guy I'm a fan of this week. Only put up 14 last week against Chicago.
Yeah. So if we're wrong, there's actually 0% chance that we're wrong about any of these takes. We're some of the brightest minds that fantasy has ever seen. But if we happen to be wrong, don't blame it on us. We're not locking in.
If you lose your matchup this week, that's on you.
Yeah.
Because we didn't touch on every player you have. So you probably messed up somewhere else.
You should take a transcript of this recording and just print it out and hang it on your wall if you want to win your fantasy league this week.
Yep.
So now we're moving into one of our more fun segments. We're going to talk about some of the most identifiable quotes and stories from around all of sports in the past week or so. We're going to decide whether this is a hot take or not take. And the first one we're going to start with, Dan Mullen says that the Texas A&M crowd was a huge factor, even though they were supposedly at 60%. Florida governor has apparently allowed huge mass gatherings again. So technically, by law, it's legal to pack the swamp again. And when asked if he wanted the swamp to be at full capacity, he said he wants it to be a sellout, and he wants all of their students packed in the student section. Is this a hot take or a not take?
I'm going to go with not take here. Let me take you back a couple weeks ago. I was in Florida, and you mentioned large mass gatherings. They're not mass gatherings. They're just large gatherings. They're doing whatever they want there. So if there's any state where this is going to happen, it's going to be in Florida. I worry about what's the legal implications of this, because I know here at Kentucky, they're trying to get us to get involved. But like one of the things here is that we have to have a virtual component to every in-person event. So if you're too afraid to go because of COVID, you have a virtual option. And if you have the University of Florida telling kids to go to this football game, and then all these kids get sick, what's the university do? I mean, maybe we should start a legal podcast. To this, but
that may be the next step for all of our huge law fans.
Would you go to that game? I wouldn't.
If I went to Florida, I would not go to that game. But coming from someone who's thousands of miles north of Florida, I absolutely hope that they pack the stands.
Yes.
I'm fine using the University of Florida as a case study for coronavirus and how it spreads, because it may sound like we don't want there to be crowds and we're against all this stuff. Like, I feel like us more than anyone wants there to be crowds, huge crowds at college football games. So maybe science has been wrong. Science is just completely wrong. Everything we know is wrong.
I know probably some listeners are going to say keep politics out of sports. I identify, I'm a Democrat. I just voted for Joe Biden. If Florida reaches herd immunity and no one dies and we are fine, I'm going to call them, get my absentee ballot back, and vote for Donald Trump. I'll do it. I don't care. I'm sacrificing my political career right now. I'll do it if he ends up being right about this. It's a stupid idea. I don't see why you do it.
I mean, I hope he's right. I say go for it. I'm gonna be watching from my room with the mask on from afar. But I'm really rooting for you guys down there, Dan Mullen. Best of luck to Gainesville and the entire state of Florida, I guess. Moving on, we haven't talked about basketball. but the Lakers win the NBA Finals against the Miami Heat in 6 games. LeBron James gets another title, and a lot of people like to talk about his finals record when you're talking about the GOAT conversation. And LeBron James, when interviewed post-game, said that their team wanted respect, Frank Vogel wanted respect, and he wants his damn respect too.
Yes, sir.
Is this a hot take or not a hot take?
It's a hot take.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. That's a hot take.
We're Pacers fans, indie boys. We love Frank Vogel. We want him to get his respect. But I know this is about LeBron. I was talking to some guys the other day, and we were talking about the difference in era. And there seems to be this weird idea that lots of people have that if it didn't happen in the 90s, it can't compare to anything. Like the 90s was tough. It was tough to win in the 90s. It's too soft now. Everyone before then was a plumber. If it didn't happen in the 90s, it doesn't matter. No, you can't think like that. We have to consider the era that LeBron's playing in. Maybe he's not getting hacked and hand checked like Jordan was, but I know he's 4-6 in the finals. I will take 10 finals appearances over perfection in the finals, especially when you took 3 years off in the middle of it. Yeah. I will take that.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. If you don't think that LeBron James is the best player of all time right now, you're either delusional or you're trying to prove something. So hop off of your high horse. If LeBron James played Michael Jordan 1-on-1, it would be a blowout. I don't care if you want to talk about legacy. I think Doc Rivers said in an interview, LeBron James has been set up to fail like his entire career because he came into the league with everyone saying he's gonna be the greatest player of all time. Anything less than that, he's a failure. And then when he does it, people just say that it's expected of him. Michael Jordan came into the league as a good player and into a league that hadn't had really like a huge face of the league like what Jordan ended up becoming. So when Jordan starts going crazy, then everyone else is going crazy with him. But when LeBron starts going crazy, everyone's else like, okay.
It's like that Stephen A. Smith meme where he's in the arena, straight face, like, yeah. Well, and then like LeBron, 4-6 in the finals, like we said, those 6 losses, 3 of them came against Golden State, the greatest team ever assembled. Throw those out the window. I don't care about those, especially when you consider that 2 of those, everyone around him was injured.
Yeah.
1 year, 2007, that was his 4th year in the league. That Cavs team was horrible. He was on, and
if you look at like the starting lineups, it looks like a joke.
It was an AAU team. He dragged Bronny's AAU team to the NBA Finals. And then, we can talk about Bronny if we want. He's probably got his ass beat by now.
Bronny's probably dead by now.
Bronny's not playing at Sierra Canyon next year.
From all of us here at Last to Win, Bronny, we're wishing you a safe and healthy recovery.
But we have probably 2 finals, 2 of his 6 finals losses that you can actually put on LeBron. It's that 2011 finals against Dallas.
Yeah.
Which admittedly LeBron didn't play too well in. He had 8 points one game. You can't play like that. But the other one was against San Antonio, which, probably a better team that year.
Yeah.
So take those 2 losses as you wish, but throw the other 4 out the window. Don't talk about those.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I just want to touch on how much I love J.R. Smith because he didn't play like pretty much the entire series. And then he's sitting there courtside waiting for the buzzer to go off and immediately rips off his shirt.
Can we agree that J.R. Smith, even though he didn't play, deserves a ring more than Danny Green and Kyle Kuzma?
Yeah. Yeah. And then have you seen the thing with like the J.R. Smith influence where like the entire Lakers team was shirtless going into their post?
Yeah. Caruso, Kuzma.
Yeah.
They're
J.R. Smith is the greatest NBA player of all time. Throw out Jordan and LeBron. I don't care. Henny God JR is the greatest player of all time.
I need his jersey.
Yeah.
Apparently they
left Quinn Cook at the arena.
Oh, well, he doesn't deserve a ring either.
Did you see that though?
Yeah.
J.R. Smith was live streaming, and Quinn Cook was in the comments like,
"Take a U-turn."
Also, Kostas Antetokounmpo gets a ring before Giannis.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't
I'm
it?
proud
Was
of
it?
him.
Was it JaVale McGee who was like talking shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, JaVale McGee shouldn't get a ring either.
Yeah. The only big man on that team, big men, Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard. They deserve rings. They deserve rings. No one else does.
Yeah, half that team doesn't
Yeah.
deserve a ring, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, keeping it somewhat basketball related. Michael Porter Jr. breakout star of the bubble. Seen on a date with Bachelor alum Madison Pruitt. We're big Madison fans.
Yeah,
Not sure if we're big MPJ fans. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm a fan of Michael Porter Jr. You know, I'll take it. He had a good
Yeah.
performance in the bubble. You know, he went to Missouri, right?
Yeah.
He got injured
Hmm.
in college, right? Yeah, big comeback
Yep.
story. You know, play well in the bubble, get a solid girl. You know, I'm there
Yeah.
for it.
I mean, because you saw what Tyler Hero did beginning of
Yeah,
quarantine.
yeah,
Nothing compares to that. Like
yeah,
MPJ can do what he wants. Nothing compares to what Tyler Hero has done this year.
yeah.
That man shot his shot, full court, and went in. Respect.
Tyler Hero's on and off the court performance has been out of this world.
Yeah, love that man.
Going on, back to football. Alabama accused Ole Miss of knowing their defensive signals. I think Nick Saban said it in an interview, and then a linebacker said that they had to have done it. Lane Kiffin used to use a coach for Nick Saban. Their reasoning was that like no matter what play they called, Ole Miss had like the perfect play drawn up in response to that. Is this a hot take or no?
It's no, not take. Uh, this is just a bad excuse for almost losing to a bad team.
Yeah.
It's not. No, just say you need to be better. Maybe mix up your offense a bit. I don't know, hide your signals better. Dude, just don't blame it on. Don't say
I'm
they're
gonna take the
cheating.
contrary. I'm going this is a hot take.
You're saying this is a hot take.
Nick
Okay.
Saban's
Okay.
I mean Lane Kiffin, maybe he knows a couple things. I don't know. I don't think Lane Kiffin's that good of a
But
coach. There's no way
yeah,
that he was able to drop this game plan on his own.
I mean, if there's anyone who's gonna do this, it's gonna be Lane Kiffin, I guess.
I love Lane
So
Kiffin.
yeah.
Yeah, but like I think that I don't I it's hard to judge looking like in on it, but I feel like Nick Saban normally doesn't make that many excuses. Normally just like screams at his team and tells them they suck. So, which I'm sure he probably still did that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the most yards they've ever given up in Alabama history under Nick Saban, and it's against Ole Miss, led by Lane Kiffin. I don't know.
I think you're sleeping on Matt Corral. Matt.
I really don't think I am.
I maybe just a little bit. Like it's
Maybe
like a little nap on Matt Corral.
I might be taking a little nap on him.
Yeah. Agree to disagree there. I
Yeah.
think it's a bad excuse.
I mean, I don't think we're
Hopefully
ever going to find out, but it's an interesting storyline.
I don't know. Maybe we get an FBI investigation. Maybe we. I hot take. Think we get a complete answer to this before we get another COVID stimulus package.
What if we just don't get either of them ever again?
That's fine.
I mean, but like, what if Alabama comes out and just like shuts everyone out the rest of the year? And we're really just going to think that Lane Kiffin
I think they probably watched the tape from the Ole Miss game and realized what they did wrong.
But like, you really think that Lane Kiffin is going to put up 45 or whatever on him?
Yes, sure.
All right, fine. Maybe I'm sleeping on Lane Kiffin. Maybe Ole Miss is good.
I think it's more likely that this was a mistake, a bad performance by Alabama. If you know everything they're doing, you don't lose the game by 2 possessions.
No, I think Ole Miss still loses no matter what they do.
That's fair.
If I'm being honest. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one. But that is all that we've got for you this week. Next week has some big games that we'll be sure to cover on. I'm sure people are going to say stupid things that we can argue about too. So look forward to that next week. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Last2Win on both platforms. We post a lot of content on there, whether it's just highlighting big games. We'll post some betting suggestions, some locks. We'll post player of the game, player of the week, stuff like that. Get in touch over there. We'll also, that's the first place we're going to announce when our new videos drop. And if you want our YouTube is Last Two End Podcast, and our SoundCloud is also Last Two End Podcast. So get in touch over there if you want to hear future episodes. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.